Hi there, Jamie Keat here today at Teachers Tech. Hope you're having a great day today. Today I'm going to give a beginner's tutorial on Photoshop CC here. Now Photoshop CC is a very powerful photo editing here. This is a beginner's tutorial with lots of information in here. I'm going to timestamp it down below so you can jump around or come back a later point if there's something specific you're looking for. Let me know in the description, or sorry, in the comments down below if there's anything more you want to learn about Photoshop. I do plan on making more videos on this one. Photoshop isn't a free product here, and you do have to make sure you get a license or a subscription now to have it as part of the Creative Cloud from Adobe on it. I do have other Adobe product videos, tutorials. If you're interested in that, take a look at the playlist in the description. So let's get started on this new tutorial here on Photoshop CC 2018. When you open up Photoshop, what you're going to see right away are any of the recent files you've recently opened here. You can also change the look if you wanted them more in a list view. Just click the list view here and you can get a little bit more information about them. I'll just click back to the thumbnail. You can also see down the left-hand side here that you can connect with your Creative Cloud files or your Lightroom files. Now, you can also open a picture here from any of the files that you have on your computer. But you can also create new. So if I was creating from scratch, I would go ahead and create new, and then you have a lot of options from presets that already are available, or you can make custom ones. So if you look across the top here, you can see the different templates that they have ready for you. And if you take a look at these are a fun way to start if you're just learning with it too. But you can also adjust make your custom dimensions right here on the right hand side. You can title things, so I'm just going to write example on this one. And you can pick your own width and height. You can see if you work in different dimensions. So if you wanted to work in pixels, you can choose your orientation on it. You can also pick things if you wanted resolution to be changed and how you want to see the units there measured. If you wanted different color mode, just go ahead and hit the drop down, and same thing with the bit. With the background choices, you can see you have your white, black, or background color. So if I go ahead and click this, you can go ahead and pick any color that you'd like and then go ahead and hit OK, and that will be the background color. And you do have some advanced options. Once you hit create, the dimensions that you've chosen will come up. And you can also open up more images too. So you can see up in the tab right here, I have my example one. I can also go to open here and open up an image. If I open up this one, you can see now I have the two different tabs open. So anytime you can open up more, you can check from your recent, or you can go back to new and create another one from scratch. Before we get started making any manipulations or transformations to the image, let's do a quick walk around. So on the left hand side here, I have my main toolbar here, and notice if I hover over or if I click on these and hover over, it kind of gives me an example of what each tool does. The other thing I want you to notice, as I click on different tools at the top, the options changes because this is for that specific tool that I have selected. So as I select it, you'll see that the options change up top so I can make it even more specific, do exactly what I wanted to do. There's also this little tiny arrow in the bottom right hand corner of each of these tools that shows that there's more tools under each one. To get to them, I can just simply right click on them and I'll get the list that will be representing under that little arrow. I can also just hold down on it and I'll get the list that way too. Now on the right hand side, I have these different windows here that are very important in Photoshop to do different things, the images, and to control what you want. And let's say they get closed down. So if I go over here, I'm going to close my layers one down here. So I'm just going to just simply click on this one and close, and now I don't have it. If you ever can't find a window over here on the right hand side, just go over to your windows over here and then you can open up your layers like so. So you can move these around too. You don't have to keep them on the right hand side. You can adjust these all around to get it to depending on how you feel you want to work on these ones. So the other thing is, before we start manipulating any picture here, we can do a couple things with the zoom here. So if you want to just zoom up on something, you can just select the magnifying glass and click on a certain area and you're going to zoom out. If I hold Alt down, you can see how I zoom out on it like this. So the other thing is, before we start doing any changes to the pictures, let's just go ahead and double click over here on the layer, because this is going to unlock it so we can make, and it will keep the changes that we make to it. And one other thing, very quick zoom, if you just simply hold down Alt, and you can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out very, very quickly too. So let's take a look at the crop tool over here. So if I hover over it, you can see what the crop does. If I hold down, you can see the different ways I can slice the image, but I'm just using this crop one. I'm going to just simply select an area like this, and this would be the area that I could crop. And up top, you can see the options that I would have to it. Or I can undo, reset the crop box. I could cancel the current or accept it. So if I commit it like this, I've accepted the crop. If you don't like it, remember you can go backwards by just simply hitting Control Z on it. If you're on a Mac, it would be your Command Z. The other way is you could open up your window for your history here, and then you're going to get the different options that you've done to the image already to it. So let's look at the crop a little bit more, some different options that we can have. So if I draw over the certain area, I can move also. So if I move this in, I can move it all around just by grabbing the picture, and then I can apply my crop. I can also rotate it. So if I go to the corner like this, I can rotate the image depending on how I want it to. If you wanted to rotate on a different point, grab this in the middle, drag it to where you want it to rotate, and then you'll be able to rotate on that specific turning point, like so. You can also drag the crop outside of the window. So this will actually make, you can see how it changes the full size of the image here. And what these checkered box are, if you're not familiar, this means that it's transparent here. So you've increased the size outside of the image where it's not inside of it. But it's wherever you see the checkered mark, that means it's transparent versus the white background on it. So let's just take a look at, I'll hit apply, and you can see how it would look now. But remember, Control Z puts it back to this. Now, some other options that I can do to transform this, if I go up to my edit here, you can see I have transform right here. And now I can go through this if I wanted to do different things. You can see how I can go to skew, and I'll just quickly go through. I have my rotate, I have my my distort. I'll go to distort here. So if I move in things, you can see how it starts to transform the picture here. And I'm going to go to warp here. I'm not going to go to them all, so I'll let you play with it just to see all the different things that you can do. Again, I'm just going to hit Control Z a few times actually I'm going to hit accept here and just go back like this. The one thing I like to do, I'm just going to close that. The one thing I like to do is go to my edit and free transform. So free transforms allows me to do a few different things very quickly. I hold shift as I do this to make sure it stays in proportion, but if I wanted to change the size of the image, and you can move it around on it, and I can also rotate things just by using my mouse on it. Like so. The other thing is, so remember, each time you make your changes, you can hit your check mark or go back or cancel to get back to it there. When you're transforming certain things too, so the one thing to take a look at, if I go back to, we'll say distort, I have all these numbers up top. If you want to get specific with any of these, so check out your options. It's just like with the options with the toolbar, you can go through and you can make your adjustments on each of these. So if I change this to 400, you can see how this is already being manipulated. So again, when you get what you want, just go ahead and hit the check mark or undo if you don't want what you have. And let's move on to some more tools. If you want to do some freehand drawing here, the brush tool is what you're going to use, or the pencil tool. So if I hold down on this, you can see the pencil tool is here. So let's take a look at the brush tool. I'm just going to go to my blank document, and if I quickly just scribble on it, you can see the size of the brush. I can change the size of the brush quickly just by going up here. You can see I have size. So if I increase the size, you can see how it increased. And underneath I have hardness. So if I bring it all the way over, you can see how it changes versus this soft edge on this one. Now I can quickly change a color too. Just over on this window right here, I can click anywhere on this and then get a specific color and make the change. Now I can do all this over here too on an image. So if you wanted to draw on a certain image, you can go ahead and draw on this. The other thing you can do, if I hold my Alt down here, I'm actually going to be grabbing the color from this. So if I wanted this specific blue right from here, I can go ahead and click it and I can grab it and I have it over here in my palette. I have a lot of different modes I can go to from here too. So if I just wanted to go back to normal mode, you can see how the color changes versus this one. So go ahead and play with it. And you have a few different options that you can kind of choose from to get that specific color that you'd want on the brushes. So same thing with the pencil here. If you switch to the pencil, you can see this is a very thin line, but you can choose your modes on it and your different options up here. If you're looking for kind of a very interesting brush to use, so I'm going to go back to my brush up here. Just click on this and you can see there's lots of different things that you can print with. You can actually even create your own brushes, but I won't do that in this tutorial. But if I go ahead and just, let's say, pick this one, I'm going to go ahead and go back to this one. Now I can be drawing with the specific things that I have. So I can click once and get it, but I can also just be drawing like a paintbrush. So that's a little bit, if you're looking to do some freehand drawing, take a look at the pencil and the brush tool. I want to show you a couple of tools that work great for making corrections to photos. Very powerful tools. So if I look over here, we have our spot healing. I'm actually going to go to a different picture that I have here with a stain on it. And I'm going to zoom up a bit just using my Alt and on my mouse, my scroll in. Something I want to show you, if you wanted to pan around, just hold down your keyboard and look how you can kind of move around. Hold down your space bar and then you can kind of move around to different parts. I'm just going to zoom out a bit. So let's get back into some just correction here. So this stain, let's say I wanted it gone, and to do this very quickly, just go to the spot healing brush here. So all I have to do is rub around. And remember, I can change the size of this circle by checking out my brushes, and I have different modes I can do. So when you're about to do this, if you need any more adjustments, make sure you check your options. But I'll leave it on this one. Actually, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. And so all I have to do, I'm just going to move over top of this like this. And when I let go, that stain is gone. It's that quick. So a different tool that you can use is this one is the healing brush tool. And the difference with this one is that you just have to select it from a different area. And to do that, you hold Alt down and it's going to take the pixels from over here, and I click my mouse. And now as I kind of move my mouse around it over that area, it will get rid of that part, taking the pixels from there. So two different quick ways with a healing brush. But a different one, if I go back to this picture, is the clone tool here. So remember, again, check your brushes and your brush sizes and your options in your mode, what you want, how you want to copy it. But what I can do is I'm going to hold down Alt. I want to copy this boat. So if I hold down Alt, click my mouse, and then I just start moving it around over here, it's creating a copy of the pixels here. So it's just taking a direct copy over, and I can put this exact boat somewhere else, somewhere else in the image here too. So those are just a couple powerful tools I find to make some quick corrections in Photoshop. A few more powerful editing tools that we have here for images are, let's start with this one. So we got the blur tool. So with the blur tool, all I need to do is go over to a certain part. I'll make sure I'm clicked on this one. And then all I have to do is click and hold on my mouse and just brush around like this. And you can see how that boat is blurring. Remember, you can change up top if you needed a different brush size for these ones. Take a look at your options and you can have some adjustments up top and through the mode. If I wanted to do the opposite, which would be sharpen, if I just hold my Alt key down as I do the same thing and just move my mouse around over top of it, it will sharpen. You can see that sharpen is actually one of the tools here that I could have switched to, but holding Alt down when you're in blur will do the same thing. The smudge tool, what it does is if I go to it, I'll show you in the trees here, I can grab pixels from the tree and just kind of, it's like take my finger and smushing it up on it. So I'm just grabbing those pixels and pushing them in the direction of what I move my mouse on it. I have my history open here so you can see how I can go quickly back here to this one. I'll just go back to my original. Now these tools down here, I have my dodge tools. The dodge tool simply just lightens up a certain area. And again, make sure, again, your brush size and your range you have to play with the different parts of this. I'll just leave it as it is. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger so you can see it. But if I go in, you can see how it will lighten up. It's lightening up these trees as I just brush in here. So the other one that I have is the burn tool that does the opposite. It will darken. I'll show you in the sky because as I just move my mouse around in the sky, you can see how it darkens it. The next one I want to show you under these ones is the, I'm just going to hover through it. So just go down to the sponge tool, and the sponge tool, if it's going to be kind of change the exposure, color saturation of the area. So you can see if I hover over here, it kind of has a different look to it as it changes the saturation to it. So just a couple more tools here just to do some advanced editing very, very quickly. And remember, you have the options on each of these to get exactly what you want. If you want to erase any pixel, just go over to the eraser, and again, you can change the size of it. I'm going to create this a little larger so you can see it, and as I just rub my mouse around, you'll be able to see how it erases the pixels on this. I'm just going to go back in the history to get rid of this. Let's move up to the top where there's the selection tools here. So the selection tools, you can see how I have different shapes. If I pick this rectangular marquee tool and drag it around, I have a certain area selected that you can see by the dotted edges on this. When you have a certain area selected, anything you do will only work within that area. So for example, if I had my brush tool and I wanted to do some painting here, I'm just going to make it this larger so you can see. I can, as I hover around, it's only going to be inside that selection tool on it. So it's not going to affect the different parts of the picture on this one. So I'm just going to go back and deselect those ones. So you can see I have different ones in here that I can pick from the different shapes. Some other ones to make some quick selections on this one. So we have our Lasso Tools where you can go around a certain area if you wanted to and just freehand it on it. And if you ever wanted to add more to this one, so if I hold down my shift and do this, and let's say draw another circle, you can see how it added more to it. If I held down Alt, it does the opposite. It will make it smaller on this. And this will work with other shapes too. So if I had, you know, a rectangular one and then I went over to my Lasso tool, I can then hold down Shift, and then if I wanted it larger, you can see how it increases in size on it. As I show you some of the other ones here, so this one is one I kind of use a lot is the magnetic lasso tool. One thing you can do if you ever don't want it selected, you can see up top it's select, deselect, or you can hit Control D to do it quickly too. With the magnetic tool here, it will snap to the edges. So I can anchor it once in a while if I want to, but I'm not clicking right now, and it will snap to the edges of this tree line because it's really easy for it to distinguish between the two colors on it. So if I'm trying to select an area, this is where the magnetic one, and I can go all the way around. I'll just do this really, really quickly to show you. And as I click, then it's all selected. And if you ever want to get rid of something, you can just hit delete after that, and it will delete that whole area that you had selected on it. Or what you can do, you can even make a copy. So if I go edit, copy, I can go edit and then paste it. I can do the shortcuts up top there, as you can see, the Control C, Control V also. But what it did when I pasted, you might not see anything, but there's a whole new layer there. So if I look down here, you can see I have a whole different layer here of just the tree line that I selected. I'm just going to delete that layer by hitting the garbage can here to just show you a few more selection tools. Just looking at this one here, we have the magic wand tool, and I use the magic wand tool lots. It will select similar colors. So if I select on the blue, click on the blue, it kind of went around the whole thing. If I hold down shift, I can make it grow still, just like before. You can see as I click around, it makes it so I can select. So now it's pretty much got most of it. And if I hit delete, I've gotten rid of the sky on this one very, very quickly with the magic wand tool. So I'm just going to go back on it. Another tool under the magic wand is the this one right here is the quick selection tool. So if I just use this one, you can see, and I just keep clicking, how quickly it grows. So I'm not holding anything else down. I'm just selecting on the trees, and like I said, I'm going to hit delete, and then the trees are out of it. So those selection tools are very, very powerful, allows you to make some quick adjustments to it. Remember, anything that you're working with inside of that area that is selected is only going to be the area of change on this one. But do take advantage of your history tool so you can go back in time on it. Okay, so let's do some more changes to this. We're going to add some text, we're going to add some shapes, we're going to talk about layers and make some adjustments to them. So simply, let's go over to our text tool here. I'm going to click on the T, hold it down, and you can see some options here. I could go vertical, horizontal. I'm just going to type in the horizontal. I'm going to type the word vacation because this is making me think of vacation right now. And when I get it the way I want, so I could go across my options to pick different font and style and size, color up here. And when I get it the way I want, I could hit my check mark and it will apply it. Notice that I have a new layer right here. So I have this text layer on top of my other layer. If I ever want to move my vacation around here, I can just simply go to my move tool, and you can see how I can adjust it in different places here. If I want to go back and work on it, if I go back to my text tool, I have all the different options. I have it selected. Sometimes I might have to highlight inside of it to make the changes up in here. But if a lot of times when you just click on it from going to it, you won't have to do that. But if it's not changing, make sure you highlight it on it. Some other changes that you can make to your text to make it look a lot more special or fancier. Click on the effects down here, and I'm just going to go to blending options here, and this will work on many of the different things and different shapes that you add on. Just click on the blending options. But to make some nice looking text, I'm going to click on bevel and emboss, and you can see how it changed it a bit. I can play with different modes of this depending on what you want and how you want it filled. So you can just go through. Let's say if I go to pattern, you can see how it changes. I have different options on pattern. I could turn that off. I could have an outer glow. When you adjust, so if I click over here, you can see how the different adjustments, I can make all these different adjustments to it. So making some nice looking font, just make sure you go to the blending options on it. I'm going to go to the shape tool now, so you can see if I hold it down, I can add all these different shapes from rectangle to the circles to the custom shapes. I'm just going to add a rectangle right here. So I'll draw a rectangle, and you can see it will come out in the blue. I could change the color up in the options. If I wanted to add a stroke to it, I'll make it a little thicker. Again, just play with it how you want. You have your size and different options on it. I can move it around by going to my move tool. I can always go back to the options by clicking on it. And notice in my layers again here, I have a brand new layer. So I have 3 different layers happening through here. You can see the effects that I added to my text one. I can actually add the effects to this one too. So if I go back to my blending options, you can see I can make those adjustments to it. So I just beveled in it. I won't go through all of these, but these are, just click on different ones and then make the adjustments on the side. So I'm just going to hit OK. So now with layers, notice if I bring it on top of vacation, since this is on the top layer, vacation's behind it. If I wanted vacation to show up, what I could do is I'll just stretch this out a bit more. I'm going to just drag it up. So notice how I can move around just so you can see everything. I'm going to move vacation on top, and now this is the top layer. So you can adjust these layers all around to get different things. If I move this one on top, well, you're not going to see it because it's behind and this one takes up everything on it. So some other adjustments that we can make here, I'll just move this one back over a little bit, right here with the adjustments. So if I go ahead and click, I'm going to go exposure. So with the exposure, if I just drag it up, notice how it's changing certain things. So it changed the background on it. That's because the exposure is only on top of the background. If I drag the exposure up, now notice how it changed the rectangle. If I drag the exposure up again, now everything is exposed. If you want to delete a certain layer, just simply hit the garbage can and this is going to be gone on it. So I got to make sure, hit delete here, get rid of that exposure, and now it's back to normal. I can also go up to my selection tool and pick a certain area and apply an adjustment to it on it. So if I go back to my adjustments and I'll just do exposure again, you can play around with different ones. Notice how it's only affected in that certain area. So now with this, you can kind of match it up. The black is the unexposed area, so I didn't change anything here. It's just inside the white on it. I'm just going to hit delete and get rid of this one, this exposure again. The other thing you can do is combine layers and make smart objects on it. So if I wanted, maybe I wanted the rectangle and the text, I'm going to hold down Control here and select two different things. You can see how they're both highlighted. If I right click on it, I can convert to smart object now. So if I convert to smart object, now they're all in the same layer and they move around together on this one. And then I can go and do my transformations to it. So if I go to edit and I wanted to, let's do a free transform, I can change things around and I could rotate it and it's going to make the adjustment. So if I wanted to apply it, I just hit the apply. If I didn't want to, it would go back. Notice though with this, if I try to make a change, if I try to draw on it, it won't let me do that. What you'd have to do if you wanted to make adjustment to this is actually go and rasterize that layer on it to make the changes to it. I'm just going to real quickly delete this layer because I want to show you something else with some filters before I move on. So I'm just going to delete this and there we go. And filters right up top here, if you wanted to add some, if you have an image and you just wanted to add filters to the whole image here, take a look at all the different filters that you can add to it. I'm just going to go, and you can remember, you can always undo these ones. So if I go to, let's go to extrude here, and you can pick, I'll just hit OK. And you can see how an adjustment is made. I can modify when I had it to start with, you could see how I can make the adjustments to it. So filters are definitely a different way if you wanted to just add some more customization to your images to go through. And remember, you do have your Control Z to go back on it. I just want to show you how to move images from one image to another in a green screen example. So if I have this classroom here and I want to take this boy from the green screen here and put it into the classroom, what I can do is this. So I'm going to use my magic wand selection tool that I showed you before. I'm just going to select on my green here. Right now the green is selected. I don't want the green selected. What I want is the boy selected. So what I'm going to do is go up to my select and I'm going to inverse it. So now you can see just this, the dotted line is just around the boy. So if I go down and go edit and I can cut or copy, I'm going to just go copy and I'm going to go to this image over here and I'm just going to go and paste it. So here's the boy in front of the class. So what I can do now is move him around with my move tool. If I needed to resize him, quick way I like to do it, I mean, you could go to the scale or the transform. I like to free transform. Remember, if you want to keep things in proportion, hold down Shift. If I wanted him a little bit smaller, I could move him around. So this has lots, and I can hit the apply. So this makes it really quickly, if you can be grabbing something from one image and bring it to the other, and then you can really, if you're using green screen, make sure you have lots of light behind it. It will just make it really, really easy. So now lastly, let's talk about how to save this here. So if I wanted to come back and work with maybe this image or some of the other images I showed you, you can see how I have two layers on this one. And let's say I'm not done this one and I just want to retain all these layers. What I'm going to need to do is, so I go up to File and I go with Save As, And I'm going to leave this one saving it as a PSD, because when I save it as a PSD, when I open it again, that's a Photoshop file that I'll be able to keep all my layers and everything will be ready to keep working on it. Now, other things I can save it as a JPEG. If you had a transparent background, you wouldn't want to save it as a JPEG because you're going to get a white background around the edge. What you'd want to do is save it as a PNG file. So if you're working with a transparent background, make sure you save it as a PNG. And if you don't care about that, then the JPEG is fine on this one. So those are just some options how to save it. So all you'd have to do is, so in this case, if I was coming back to it, I would just save it as my PSD. I would give it a name. I'll just say boy in school here, and I would go ahead and save it and hit OK. But remember, so I generally save with the PNG or JPEG options. Makes a difference if you want that transparent background to be shown or not. So I hope you like this beginner's tutorial. I know there was lots of information in here. Let me know if there's any other tutorials or tips that you want about Photoshop. I'm going to be creating more for this one. If you have liked this, please share this, hit that like button. And thanks so much for watching this week, and I'll see you next time.